I grew up playing baseball, and when I got out of high school, I really got into the golf grind. And since then, over the past 10 years or so, I've become a scratch golfer. And one of the main things that I've learned is how to practice efficiently and effectively. Because this is something that basically everyone gets wrong. And look at any amateur range, and basically what you're going to see is everyone just gets a large bucket, they tip it over, and then they just start blindly rapid fire hitting balls, usually a few wedges, and then go straight to the driver. And if you look at a pro range, what you're going to see is it's very structured, it's much slower, they're using alignment sticks, they're actually picking targets, and they're consciously thinking about what shots they're hitting. So I like to do these YouTube workout videos where they're guiding you through a workout session, and I thought it would be a really cool idea to make a golf guided range session, because I think a problem that a lot of golfers have is that they just don't know exactly what to do on the range. So I'm starting this series for guided range sessions, and when I looked these up on YouTube, there really weren't any channels doing this. So when you watch, let me know if this is helpful, and if there's anything that would make this more helpful, let me know, and I'll make sure to include these improvements in my next videos. I call this practice routine the 80-20 routine, and that's because we're going to focus on 4 of the most common shots that you'll face throughout a round of golf, and by focusing all of our reps on just these handful of shots, it'll set up your practice to be really efficient. If you're not familiar with the 80-20 principle, it's just the basic idea that a small amount of input typically creates the majority of output. So in this routine, you can use any size bucket. Everything I'll do on this channel will just be proportioned, so the larger the bucket you have, the more reps you'll have. But a quick overview of this routine is that we're going to break our bucket into 4 sections, and each section is going to be an individual club, and then for each of the clubs, we're going to break those in half. First half being block practice, and the second half being random practice. And I like to call this batching, and it really helps my ADHD brain to stay focused throughout a bucket. One of the issues I always had was I would start focus and then I'd lose focus and start hitting all these random shots. But batching my bucket into small portions like this, it really is great at just keeping you focused and keeping you conscious throughout the session. So to start, go ahead and take your bucket, dump half of it out. And then with that half, cut that in half, and half of that's going to be your sand wedge or whatever your scoring wedge is, and then the other half is going to be your 9-iron. And then with those 2 halves, cut them in half again, and you should have 4 batches of balls on the mat, and that's going to be block practice and random practice for both your sand wedge and 9-iron. So as you can see, I have 4 small batches on the mat, and I'm starting with block practice with my sand wedge. And you can use whatever wedge you want. I just say you lay up to a par 5 and you pick your favorite wedge yardage. I want you to use that wedge because that's your scoring wedge, and that's a club that you need to be really good at if you want to be good at golf. So we're going to start with this, and for me, this is my 56 degree. And the thing to work on with wedges is to take assertive but controlled swings. When you're working on your wedge, it's about precision, not distance. If you try to hit your wedges really far, you're just going to create tons of spin, and they're going to just float up in the air and get lost in the wind. So just make sure to take really controlled swings. Like, you should never make a wedge swing where you're just falling off balance and whatnot. So in the first half of these wedge shots, really use your alignment sticks, have a target. You're hitting all your shots to this target, and just work on hitting the same exact shot every time. And this is what good block practice is. And then in the second half of your wedge portion, then you can do more random practice where you can pick different targets. You can play around with different shots, but I want you to hit your normal shot. Like, change targets so you're having to re-aim and go through the process of aiming to new targets, but still hit your stock shot, because this is what most shots on the golf course are going to be. And so I'm going to fast forward through the rest of my wedge shots, but the next portion is going to be your 9-iron, and we're going to go through the same process. So if you're doing this live, go ahead and pause and resume whenever you're done hitting your sand wedges, and then we'll move on to your 9-iron. So the next club that we're going to use is the 9-iron. And assuming that you're playing the right tees, courses are generally designed so that when you hit your driver, you typically have about 120 to 150 into normal par 4. And that for most people, that's generally a 9-iron, maybe an 8-iron, maybe pitching wedge. in that general range on a par 4, it's designed so that you have about a 9-iron in. So that's going to be our next club, because that's going to be your average approach shot into a par 4. And with a 9-iron, similar to the sand wedge, I want you to make an assertive swing, but we're not ripping driver. It's about having a controlled swing, hitting the center of the face, and making sure that the ball really just gets started on your intended start line. As a reminder, in the first portion of your 9-iron, these are all block practice shots. Make sure your alignment sticks are set up. Make sure that they haven't shifted throughout your previous set of balls. And then when you move on to your second set, that's when you can take the alignment sticks away if you want, to kind of change targets, visualize different shots that you have on the course. Like if you have a tricky par 3 at your home course or whatnot, you can kind of visualize playing that hole with your 9-iron. But that would be the point of the random practice. So go through the block practice, and then when you get to the random, try to change things up and challenge yourself to different targets. And if you're doing this live, go ahead and pause. I'm going to fast forward through the rest of my 9-irons, and then we'll move on to the next club. So once you're done with your 9-irons, the next club that we're going to use is our 7-iron. And the reason for this is that, generally speaking, the average par 3 is about a 7-iron. If you're playing the right tees, when you start to tip out the courses, the par 3s start to stretch out, so then it becomes a 4 or 5-iron. If you do play the tips, feel free to use whatever club is about the normal shot into a par 3. But for the average player, it's generally designed to be a 7-iron. So that's what we're going to do here. So dump out the rest of your bucket, split it in half, and then split each of those halves in half again. And the real key to focus on when you're working on your mid to long irons is letting the club do the work. I think what a lot of players do, and what they get wrong with the longer irons, is they try to swing harder to get the ball in the air. And so what I want you to focus on is to almost feel like you're swinging a 9-iron. The club's longer, so it's going to swing faster naturally. So just feel like you're swinging the same tempo as your 9-iron, and just let the club do the work. Don't try to lift it up in the air. Don't try to hit it extra hard or anything like that. Just let the club do the work and feel that smooth tempo, and just make an assertive swing, but stay controlled. Don't lose the control. So if you're hitting balls, go ahead and pause. I'm going to fast forward through the rest of my 7-irons, and then when you're done, go ahead and resume, and we'll move on to the next club. So the last club is the big dog, and with the driver, I like to pick a target, but I also like to pick visual reference points that I can use as a pretend fairway, and pretend rough and trees, and basically with every driver, I just want to visualize me hitting the fairway, and I just want to work on hitting good solid drives that are going to put me in play and give myself a good approach look. I think people would be shocked at how important it is to just improve your bad drives. Like, everyone's so focused on generating crazy speed and getting their club head speed way up, but the easiest way to pick up 20 yards on your average drive is literally just improving your bad drives. Like, for a lot of people, a bad drive is like sub 200. If you can get all your drives generally within like your normal drive range, you're gonna improve your average drive, because you don't have those lower drives dragging your average down. So I know it may sound basic, but when you're working on your driver, really just focus on hitting the center of the club face and just hitting good, decent drives that would put you in play. Like, don't chase speed, don't chase any crazy distance. Just first focus on really just hitting the center of the face, hitting good drives, putting yourself in play, and being able to repeat this and do this over and over again. So when you hit all your drivers, that's it for this range session. Let me know if this has been helpful. Let me know if there's anything I can do to make this more helpful or anything that can be improved on. This is the first video on the channel. I'm going to continue to make these. I have a bunch of ideas lined up. If there's any specific things that you guys want to see, please let me know. And make sure to subscribe, because as far as I know, I'm the only channel doing it. So if you want these guided range sessions, make sure to subscribe and follow along.